Welcome to the No Guilt Fangirls podcast, where liking what you like is never a bad thing. Here's your host and head fangirl in charge, Patty Holiday.
Hey y'all, welcome to the No Guilt Fangirls podcast. I'm your host and head fangirl in charge, Patty Holiday. Now today, this one's going to be fun. We are going back to the late 80s, early 90s, and one of my first mega fandoms. That's right, this is the 90210 show. I mean, the show ran for 10 years, which was prime young adult life when I was growing up. If there's anything that screams Patty grows up, it was 90210, guys. This was me. This was my life. Yeah. And I know on the show today, I have somebody who kind of feels the same way. This is Emille Crawford. Hey, Emille.
Hey, lady. How you doing?
I'm good. Emille is... I'm not even sure how to describe Emille.
Hashtag jazz hands.
That's perfect. That's perfect. She's a little bit of she's a little bit of everything, like wrapped up in this adorable blonde Latina, and I love her.
The feeling is mutual.
Now, Emille, she's a wife and a mom. She moved her family as close to the magic of Disney as they could get just a couple of years ago. So, I love that.
We sure did.
Totally living the dream. She blogs at EmilleEnchanted.com.
That's right.
And tell us a little bit more about yourself and where people can find you online.
Yes, EmilleEnchanted.com, Instagram, Emille_enchanted. Like Patty said, super self-proclaimed Disney nerd, hopeless romantic, fangirl. I love binging random TV shows, especially these 90s, early 2000s too. Oh my gosh, like we can get into that later. But any other like Gilmore Girls fans, Dawson's Creek, like that was my life. It's so ridiculous. What else? So I have a background in entertainment. I spent most of the last 15 years in Nashville, Tennessee doing music, and I still sort of do that in a really weird platform, but I love it. I do prison ministry now, and super random because I'm so bubbly and Disney and whatever, but God chose that life for me, and it's interesting, but it's been a wild and crazy adventure. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And your Disneyness is of course how I know you, because that's how I know everybody pretty much. All roads go through the mouse ears and the castle, to bring people into my life, it feels like. So that's how, and we knew each other because of your connection with the Disney Parks Moms panel, and all of those people have always been my people. And so that's how I met you.
Yes.
Through our friend Tanya.
Yes. It's the gift that gives on giving, it seems.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I always say, I didn't make it on the moms panel, but I made so much more out of it because all of these amazing people came into my life through that whole process. So absolutely nothing but love for everything that I got from the moms panelists. It's been, you guys are just my favorites.
Here.
Thinking through all the different episodes I've done so far, I think it's pretty much 50-50 that I have had just as many moms panelists on.
Oh, that's hilarious.
In a non-official capacity. Let's not, get anybody into trouble. Just saying they're just happen to be, that just happens to be a connection that they all have. But it's just kind of funny that I'm thinking it through. I'm like, there's a lot of you guys. But you make good guests.
Awesome.
You make good guests. So what can I say?
Yay. Moms panel people are the best.
They are. All right. So we are talking 90210 today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the original show and what we loved about it. And then we are completely going to talk about the BH90210, which is this this reboot that's happened. And what's so funny about the reboot is I went into the reboot like I think pretty much everybody on Twitter did, because I was following along on Twitter as I was watching the show. And we all expected it to be a literal reboot of, our friends, Brenda, Brandon, everybody coming back to Beverly Hills. And that's not what happened. And so there was a ton of confusion. People were like, what is going on? And I felt that way for like the first 15, 20 minutes. And then after that, it got me. It totally sucked me in. And I was all about what they're doing. And I love it, love it, love it, love it. So we're going to talk more in detail about that. But first, got any, let's see. But first, let's talk about the original 90210 a bit. So this is probably like my original fandom, my first obsession, like way back in like 1989 when it came out. I was on board from the beginning, somewhat because I related to the Walsh kids in a way. We moved around a lot, and so I completely understood that feeling of, being this fish out of water and showing up at a new place. Tell us a little bit about the setup of the original show, what it was about, who was in it, that kind of thing.
So we start at the pilot, if you've ever watched the pilot, and it's so crazy because I don't know that maybe they didn't think it was going to do well because it looks crappy. I'm not trying to trash the show, but do you know what I mean?
No, it just terrible.
It did. It was, the sets were not the same. So this first episode is just the randomest thing, and you see twins, Brenda and Brandon Walsh, and they're coming from Minnesota and moving to Beverly Hills. And so they're totally just flannel rocking, completely, like Patty was saying, fish out of water. And they arrive and everybody's got these Mac Daddy cars and like bougie, and it was like Hollywood high school. It was crazy. West Beverly, by the way, can we get some nomenclature? I'm not going to throw nobody under the bus, but West Beverly High, people. Come on, let's get this fan nomenclature right.
That is accurate. We strive for accuracy. So yes. Okay. All right. Yeah. I was actually just watching the pilot a little while ago, and I was laughing so hard because over the 10 years, and now it's been 30 years since the show was on, the song and the all of that is so
it was
ingrained.
Different.
Mm-hmm. It was so ingrained. The song was still there, but they have Brenda and Brandon getting into their hoopty, and and I don't even know what that is. It's like it's probably the ugliest brown car that they could find. It's some hatchback thing.
They don't even make them anymore. That's my guess.
They don't. And they have them driving like down Rodeo Drive, basically, in this hoopty car to get to school, which is hilarious on its own. But then I flash forward to how that whole lead in, how the song song entry and everything, how all of that changes, and we get very slick very quick. I think it might be like in season 2 where they finally kick things into gear and they change it all. But anyway, so yeah, if you haven't seen the pilot in a bazillion years, it's so worth a look just to see where this all started from.
God. It's like when you watch those old commercials from the 80s and you're just cracking up at the style and the hair and the cars. It's a time warp. But it's so good.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun. So yeah. All right. So they show up and they have to be the new kids going to a new school, which is always hard, but they're also teenagers in high school, which is the worst.
Yes.
And their parents throw them into West Beverly Hills. That's got to be, in real life, I'm sure that would have been a tough situation to be in, regardless, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's the premise of the show is you get these twins that are from the Midwest. They come and they have to try to figure out how to fit in and how to adjust. And, they were both, popular straight A students with their own things back in Minnesota. And then here they are in California having to figure out life, as teens. And so for me, that was one of the things that I caught on and I hit with immediately because I was that kid, literally that kid at that exact time doing those things. We moved from San Antonio to Houston and then from Houston to California. All within the span of about 2.5 years, something like that. And I had to do that. So it was very, when I was watching this, I was like, yep. I mean, I remember, showing up for my first day of school in California. And I had in Texas, it was kind of a status symbol, whatever, to have like a fancy purse. And we dressed up. I mean, it was not weird for me to wear pantyhose. This is back in the day, guys, but I would wear would wear skirts and pantyhose, and I definitely had my hair all done and whatever. I show up in Northern California, which is way more laid back, and everybody carried a backpack. Everybody had a JanSport. Like, you didn't carry a purse to school. And I'm like, standing there with my scrunchie and my Coach purse, and I'm like going, okay, well, I can leave that at home, and I need to invest in a backpack apparently. So it was an actual real life, very weird situation for me, and I could completely feel for Brenda, particularly. She's the one who's more stressed about this whole fitting in, as girls tend to be, I guess. Yeah. So yeah. This one stood out for me. What about for you? Were you a fangirl from the start, or did it take a little bit of?
I was, but in a weird way. So like, I grew up, born and raised in Puerto Rico. So, and the age thing, I didn't start watching 90210 until I caught it in reruns. So it was kind of like discombobulated for me. But like, you throw a little like love triangle, whatever, and I'm hooked, So, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, who's Dylan going to pick? Is it going to be Brenda? Is it going to be Kelly? And I'm tuned in every week just trying to find out. You know what I'm saying? So it was probably around 9th grade. I think I was 15. And I don't remember if the reruns, the show's always been on Fox, but for some reason I remember like the WB, like, am I tripping? Maybe that's where it aired on back home. I don't know. Whatever. But I just remember like Wednesday nights, you were glued to the tube. You were just watching.
We were totally glued to the tube. That was my girlfriends and I, when I finally got to California and found my people and found my crew, that was our thing. Wednesday night, we'd go to our friend Erin's house, pile up on her bed, and dish about what was happening on screen with 90210.
Oh my God.
Yeah, total good memories. And like when everyone went off to college, I remember them. So I was supposed to go off to college. Something changed. I didn't go off to college, and I stayed home trying to figure out what I was going to do. So I was stuck at home with nothing going on in my life for like 2 months, where all my friends had taken off and gone to college, but they came home, which made me laugh so hard. I was like, guys, if I was out, I'd be out. Like, I would not be coming home every week, but they would come. Right. They would come home every week, and a couple of times they would show up on random Wednesdays, and they're like, "It's 90210 night. We have to get together."
I love that.
So even into college, we would hang out on Erin's bed watching 90210. So yeah, it was definitely something that we were all completely into, and like you said, it's because it was this teenage soap opera.
It was so soapy, but so great.
It was. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say this is pretty much like the first massive teen soap. Like this paved the way for Degrassi and for Dawson's Creek.
Totally. Yeah. And I don't know for sure, but I think so. Yeah. It was, other than like Saved by the Bell, but Saved by the Bell it wasn't the same thing.
It was not the same thing. Yeah. That was more, I don't know, sitcom-y. And this was.
Exactly. This was like a dramedy or something. Not even, but it was like a drama. It was a teen drama for sure.
Yeah. Like they took steps to actually try to address real life things that real life teens were dealing with.
Yes.
In
the hot topics. Yes.
Yes. In the Hollywood way, but they did. They talked about LGBTQT. They talked about suicide. They talked about
addiction and
teen pregnancy, and kids with divorced parents. Like, they did really address things. I was the yearbook editor, and I had to write like a, what happened in 1992 kind of thing. And I totally remember searching out and finding a picture from the 90210 kids and slapping it in the yearbook and saying something super cheesy, like, "Thank goodness for their realistic ways of dealing with our teen problems."
That is amazing. You need to find that.
I do. But that was where I came from. That is how this show affected me as a teen. Yes. It was my everything. So
it really was.
Needless to say, when I heard that they were rebooting it, I was just a full stop. I think that's also, to tell you why last Wednesday night I sat there confused with everybody else on Twitter as I'm watching the show, is because all I heard was, it's a reboot, everybody's coming back. That's all I needed to know. Like, I went no further. I did not see any of the interviews. I did not.
It didn't matter. We were going to watch.
Yeah, I knew I was going to be there for it. So I didn't watch. I didn't know in advance that the whole premise was going to be completely different. And I have to wonder if I wasn't alone in that. Like, if there was a lot of us that just said that's all we needed to hear, and that's what our assumption was that it was going to be this typical reboot. It is not.
Right.
It is not. It is not. But we'll get to that. Do you have any? I do want to know about like the old show first because I love the old show. Do you?
Yes.
Do you have any moments or memories of the series that stood out as particularly memorable to you that, I don't know, impacted you in any way?
For me, not so much impacted. My goodness. I don't know. Like looking back, it's funny because I did kind of, before the reboot, I stumbled upon it on Hulu and I started watching it again. And it's funny though, how some of these things really do influence you. Like it made me as a parent be like, oh my God, I really got to monitor what my kids are watching because I'm like, I think I gave myself permission to do that because I see these knuckleheads, but that's beside the point. But I loved Donna and David's story. Again, hopeless romantic.
Yes.
The fact that they made it to the end. But side note, and fair warning to all of you that are binge watching the original, if you're watching it on Hulu, I don't know if Hulu, you fixed it. I'm a little salty, honey. You do not have the final episode. I could not believe. I was so mad. I went all the way through the end, and it was right when David proposed, and it was that season finale that was 2 hours long. So technically one episode, but they split it in half. Honey, they only have that first half. I was so mad. So homework. I need to like Google to see if somebody has this ripped on YouTube or something. Because now I need to see the freaking wedding. Like they left me hanging.
We should have done this on video. You should see my mouth. It's like on the ground right now. I'm like, Hulu.
I'm so pissed. How can I say pissed on this show?
You can say pissed. Pissed is fine. But I'm just sitting here going, oh my gosh, Hulu. Like what? How could you leave that off? That was the big payoff after 10 seasons for us.
Honestly. Matter of fact, like I'm on my phone right now checking to see if they fixed it. So please hold. No, I'm kidding. But seriously, I was like, are you kidding me? And what's funny, like I wish I would have known before going into it because then I would have been like mentally prepared. But no, like I go through all this and like, I was just kind of watching the end of the show, like the last season or whatever. And I was so mad, man. I was like, come on, Hulu, you can't do that. It's not even available to like buy it.
That's
anyway
not fair. That's not cool. That's not cool. The fandom does not appreciate that Hulu at all.
No, we're salty.
We are salty about that.
Yes. Okay. So if you go to Hulu and you search Beverly Hills 90210, the original, it says season 10, episode 26, and the title is Penultimate. And guess what? That's the last one. How about penultimate is not the ultimate? It's not the end. I'm getting a little hood here because I'm salty AF, Hulu. Come on. Okay. Moving on.
Okay. Hey, Emille has feelings about this, and that's what any good fangirl is going to have, right?
Come on.
I loved David and Donna too, and I completely, when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, do you remember the episode where she like kisses him in front of everybody? And she's like, what? I like him. And I was like, yes! That was one of my favorites.
David's transformation in the beginning gave me life. Like it just reminds me of, he went from totally geek to totally chic. I mean, he was just, David's my favorite. Like everybody asked me, what's my favorite David? Because
yep, same.
The music thing and the nerdy thing. And he was just so dreamy. Oh my God, David. To this day, holy crap, Brian Austin Green, you're just so cute.
He's adorable. He is adorable. Oh, and he has a podcast, FYI. So anybody that's interested.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got a podcast. So yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I liked Brandon a lot. I liked Dylan a lot. I probably liked Brandon more than Dylan. That's where I leaned. However, when David really kind of got into his stride, David was my favorite. And part of that is I have always leaned towards somebody who can sing and dance and act. I am one of the biggest Zac Efron fangirls from High School Musical days.
So Zac Efron,
yeah. So I think Brian Austin Green was my first Zac Efron.
Yes, I like it. I agree. That's a good one.
I think he pushed me into that next level of fangirling. But yeah, no, I really like that. Also appreciated and always loved Prom Night with Brenda and Dylan.
Oh my gosh, girl.
Because that was such a big deal and it was such a big thing. And will they or won't they? And up until that point, pretty much either the girl backs out or she changes her mind or she decides not to have sex on prom night because it's always prom night. Or she does, but it's horrible and she hated it and it wasn't worth it. And it was like this terrible experience and whatever. And finally they gave us this story where Brendan and Dylan have sex on prom night and it's okay. Like it's not nothing super bad and terrible happened from it, which was just different and nice to see because you didn't see that, especially not on TV back in the early 90s. You never saw that. Of course they did.
Yeah, no doubt.
They had to throw it in with a pregnancy scare after because I'm sure that the censors or parents freaked out over it or whatever the deal was. But you know, at least for a little bit there, that was probably one of the first ones that we got to see where, hey, it's, you know, this is what kids do. And, and it doesn't have to always be a bad thing, right? She made an informed consent decision and I appreciated that.
Yes. I think they handled that well for sure.
Yeah. Even as a mom, I still appreciate that they portrayed it in that light. So that was one of those moments that kind of has stuck with me over the years. Now, flip to the next question. Was there any moments where you rolled your eyes really big or thought about walking away from the series or thought, okay, this one, I'm done. I've had enough.
Yeah. So it got weird. Like as they kept introducing newer characters and whatever, like there was this like, I'm so Disney. I'm trying to call her something. And the word that comes to mind is villain. The villain of the show. No, do you remember that chick? What was her name? She was trying to sleep with everybody. She was driving me crazy. First it was like Dylan and then David. Gina.
Gina.
Oh, she was like 5 foot nothing, probably weighed 50 pounds wet. I wanted to pop her. Like she drove me crazy. Yep. I just
Gina
didn't,
Kincaid. Gina Kincaid. You
had the bad people always. There was always somebody creating ruckus. Like, but Valerie, you know, which I had a soft spot because, again, fangirl 90210, she was freaking Kelly Kapowski, and then all of a sudden she was bad. So I still loved her. You love to, you know, you can like these characters even though they drive you crazy, but Gina was just like not likable. And so she was one of those moments that, but I still watched it. I still needed to know what was going to happen with this chick. And I think at the end, she just like leaves or whatever. I don't remember, but she was annoying. Well, she was like Donna's half sister or something, wasn't she?
Oh, dude, I lost track of all of the
It was a spaghetti. Yes, it was a spaghetti at that point.
All these relationships, which also made me laugh because one of my favorite quotes in this first, it was in the first season, is when Steve and Brandon are talking and they're first kind of meeting each other and hanging out or whatever. And they're at Steve's house and Steve's like, or Brandon says something like, your house is so nice. And he said, oh yeah, this is nothing. You should have seen the house before my parents got divorced. And he was like, oh, they got divorced. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Or when did that happen? And he goes, oh, well, which time? And Brandon's
oh
like,
my gosh.
They've been divorced from each other multiple times. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, he's like, there's been other kids thrown in. I've lost count. And he looks at him and he's like, are your parents still together? And Brayden's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, Steve goes, don't blame yourself. It's okay. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
In the Steve Sander world, you know, nobody stays together and it's all this kind of crazy whatever, where Brandon is this Midwest, you know, value kind of guy.
Yes.
Parents are still boringly married to each other, and it just made me laugh. But yeah, I think some of those villains and some of those changes that they had to do in the later years, I got why they did it, and some of them you just had to roll with them and get through them. Mm-hmm. I will say that at the time, I took offense and I hated the fact that Brenda was leaving. When Brenda left. Yeah. When Brenda left, I had a really hard time staying tuned in because, first of all, I love Shannon Doherty. You know, she was, one of my favorite movies was Heathers. And Shannon was in Heathers. And I adore Heathers. And anyway, so I had an affinity for her anyway. On top of that, I had the haircut. Like I looked like Shannon.
Shut up.
And
we need pictures of this.
I know. I got to pull it up because, and I just completely remember the day that somebody like made that comment. I went out and got a picture taken because I was like, really? You know, I need to see this because I didn't believe it. I had a perm like for forever, but at some point I straightened my hair, but I had the bangs and it was all straight. I don't remember trying to look like her or doing it on purpose, but I was in drama too. And one of the guys in my drama class like looked at me just one day. He was like, has anybody ever told you how much you look like Shannon Doherty? And I was like, wait, what? Huh? I do? Me? I was like, just call me Brenda. So I totally leaned into that for a little while. And then I went back to my perm. But But when she left, you also have to remember, guys, when Brenda left the show, and you're seeing some of this play out in the new series in BH90210, but when Brenda left the show, it was because she was causing some problems on screen, off screen, behind the scenes. Like apparently nobody on the cast liked her. Nobody could handle her. Nobody could deal with her. She would show up late or not show up at all. I'm not sure if she showed up drunk or not. I can't remember if that was part of the story either. But I mean, the point was she wasn't being super professional for whatever her reasons were. I don't know what they were. This is all pre-internet also. So
true.
We didn't know these things were happening as they happen. Like nowadays, we know all the ish that's going on behind the scenes, like as things are going on.
Right.
But we didn't know all of that back then. So all I knew was that one of my favorite characters after 4 years, I think 4.5 years, something like that, was leaving like for good, not even just, backing off or wanting to do other projects or whatever. She was gone. And nobody apparently on the set was mad about it, which just didn't make any sense,
because we didn't know the story. Right.
We didn't know this story. And we always wanted her and Dylan, to be together. So that was my big thing. But as we all know now, there's been like this unauthorized 90210 story out there, and some of the dirt came out about the things that they went through, and they're playing that up a lot on this new series, this BH90210, with no one liking Shannon.
Which is hilarious. It is so good. I'm eating it up.
So good.
I'm scared for it.
Yes. And what I was laughing so much is that people were like defending her and were getting mad about it on Twitter. And I'm like, all right, do I need to educate y'all? Because first of all, she's on the show. So obviously there's not as many like hard feelings as they're playing it up to be. But there really were some back 30 years ago when all of this went down. And I would say she probably would admit that, she deserves it because she did some things, right? On like the biggest show of all time at the time. I don't know if it was that big, but I mean, it was the biggest show in my world, obviously.
It was though. That thing blew up. It was so big.
It really did. So anyway, so Brenda was kind of my favorite character early on, all the way through that, just because I looked like her. I was doing that whole fish out of water thing myself, trying to fit in. So I kind of related to Brenda a lot. Did you have a favorite character or anybody that you related to?
I mean, it was David. I know it's so weird. Obviously, it was the girl crush thing. Like, oh my God, he was the dreamiest. But also, again, I was nerdy in high school. I was overweight and I was insecure and all this crap. And so to see him, it was almost like, man, that was like every nerd's dream. To like tap into the cool kids and belong all of a sudden. Like they embraced him, and then he grew up into his own and he was a late bloomer, whatever. And so to me, it was like living vicariously through David Silver, going from complete nerd to like being a part of the crew, having that tribe or whatever. Yep. So oh my gosh, like that was my dream or whatever, so stupid, but yeah, it was. So him, he was my jam. He was my jam.
All right. Fair enough. I get it. All right. So like I said, I've been watching the pilot, and I'm gonna have to dive in and watch the entire series like you did, because I am now back to being completely obsessed.
And you're gonna love it just as much. It's ridiculous. I get sucked in all over again. I just love the stupid show. I do.
Well, we can't talk about 90210 without addressing Luke Perry.
Luke
for
Perry.
a variety of reasons. I know. So Luke, comes on the scene, and I think he was just supposed to be like in the first season, and he wasn't supposed to be this.
Yes, his story is crazy. He was like a construction worker. He was like building crap when he got cast. His story is so amazing.
And everybody just, they fell for this bad boy, Dylan McCay, bad boy with a heart of gold. I don't even know, but just absolutely loved him. And next thing we know, he's now a central part of the whole story. He stays on, and he becomes Luke Perry, as we all know and love. And kids, kids that are listening to this and you're like, Luke Perry from Riverdale, he's amazing. Yes. Yes. But he was Dylan first, guys. He was Dylan first. He was our Luke Perry first.
Yes, always and forever, Dylan McCay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how in this first episode, obviously, they had to address it, and they had to address it in some way. This is the BH90210 that we're talking about now, the reboot version here. They had to address Luke, and they did address it pretty close together when they're like, I love it when we're all together. And it was, the first group scene of them. And I think it's Ian. I think Ian says, well, not all of us, or some, they make some moment where they kind of address that. And then they don't say a whole lot for a while. And I know the fans on Twitter were like, what? That's it? That's all you're going to say about Luke Perry not being there? What? Don't worry, fans. Don't worry. If you have not seen the premiere, you have to go back and watch this, because it's completely worth it. They do go back and they have a whole moment where they talk about Luke, and they address, how they miss him and how much he meant to them. And it was very sweet.
They did that right. They really did.
They really did. That whole scene of Tori, talking on the plane is probably my favorite scene from this reboot. Oh, the whole craziness of stealing the dress, and then just
that was so great. It was so funny and so insane.
It was insane, and it was awesome. And Tori Spelling, you have come a long way, baby. I loved watching you in this. I really did, and I loved that scene where she steals the dress, and then she's on the plane, and she says all this really great stuff about her castmates and stuff. And anyway, and then it takes a turn, which is a very 90210, which I loved also. So it was great. It was great. That's my favorite scene from that first premiere so far.
I cannot wait. I think they're doing a good job. Again, for like those that were a little apprehensive because they were confused. Like I had been following along, watching the cast do interviews on, GMA and the Kelly and Ryan and whatever. So I knew going into it what they were doing. But like the flashbacks and the fact that now Tori is going to run with the idea. So like you're still going to get what you're wanting, but they're still going to mix it. I just think it's fantastic. It's so interesting. It's such a clever idea, and they're doing a good job with it. I'm a fan. Me too. So if anybody hasn't watched it, or if you did and you're still just completely confused, I want to talk about why we think it's so brilliant, why we thought this was so smart. So what they've done, it's a show within a show, okay? They are loosely playing themselves. Heightened versions.
Right. So we're getting some truth and some story, but not the full thing. Like, for example,
right. And some exaggeration, which is hilarious.
And some exaggeration, yeah. So, for example, when they are talking to Jenny Garth about her failed marriages, part of that is true. She has had some ups and downs in her marriages. However, currently, I believe, if I read this correctly, her and her husband are happy together. So she's in a good spot right now. Ian Ziering, he is married to a blogger. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. Now I'm going to have to go dig.
Oh. Yeah. Erin, she's a blogger. And they actually have a blog together. I think it's called Living with the Zierings, something like
that.
Cute. Anyway, yeah. So she's a blogger, and so I think his version of his wife in that show is obviously his wife on a heightened version as well, like, building her brand and all of that kind of stuff. That's very bloggerish. Yeah. You and I are from that background. So we talk like that too. But again, I'm assuming she's not cheating on him.
Let's hope. Oh my God.
So there's like all these little nuggets of things that they're pulling in from their real lives, and they are talking about it on the show. Tori Spelling, who's been in like, I don't even know how many reality TV shows.
That was so great.
And she is leaning into this, and she is making this whole thing about her life. And I mean, it's so smart. They're just doing such a good job. So what I love about that is they're taking their real life, and letting them play themselves to an extent on screen. Now, this may not be nice to say, but I got to say this. all of these actors are decent actors. Don't get me wrong. I'm not slamming them, but they're not like they're amazing actors. You know what I mean? They're not, Oscar contenders, right?
Yeah.
So I really love how they're working with their strengths, so to speak. They're letting them go back to something that's familiar, that we are going to bring in this 90210 reboot. That's actually happening, because at the very end, Tori's like, brilliant idea. We have to do this. We need to bring that back.
Yes.
And that's where all of us fans are going to get to see some of our 90210-ish, those connections happening again. But at the same time, they're allowing them to kind of, play off the absurdity that is their own lives. And even at one point they said, do you ever think about what would have happened to our lives if we hadn't done this show? And Brian Austin is like, every day. Like, I think he's the one that says it. But point being, like, this show is what put all of them on the map.
Yep.
Shannon was the biggest name out of everybody. She'd been in a couple of movies, and Heathers was, I think, her biggest movie at the time. But I think everybody else was really pretty brand new. And so this is the show that made their careers. And I just love that they're doing this. So what we're seeing is them playing themselves-ish, but there's still some drama and there's still some twists that are happening. And I'm down with it. It was so smart. It's so meta. And it's also so much fun to see them taking moments and, poking each other and allowing that to come out, because we all know that we know these stories. Like, we know Jenny Garth's story about her families and her issues and her husband's. And like, at one point, Ian yells at her about, you can't give me relationship advice.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just, anyway, I feel like I like the trajectory that we're going on. I do think it's a shift in thinking. So if you're going into this and you haven't watched it yet and you're like, all right, let me decide if this is what I want to do, you do have to think about things a little bit differently to get into it. But I think if you lean in, I think it's going to pay off. It's an 8-episode series is all they have going on right now. The second one is coming out. We are recording this on a Tuesday. So by the time it plays and is out on the internet, by the time this podcast goes out, we will have also watched the second one, because that's going to be tomorrow night, and you can bet we're going to be watching it.
Yes, ma'am. It's so funny too. Like, they're killing us. They're really making us feel old school, having us watch this live. Like, couldn't it have been on Netflix? Because I would have loved to binge. But no,
I would have been
making us go back to the 90s and wait till Wednesday. Y'all are killing me. Oh my God.
But that's part of the brilliance of this whole thing,
really
right?
No, I was thinking about, like, even the very beginning, not to like do any spoilers, but really, like, if you're a super fan, all the little nods they did in the first, like, even 3 minutes of the show, I was dying. I had the biggest grin in my face. They have Andrea and Steve go in with an egg to the Peach Pit. And then and Brandon's dressed up Peach Pit gear. I was dying. It was just so, oh my God. They're just feeding me my obsession, and I'm here for it.
I was the person who was watching those first 2 or 3 minutes going,
like, what the crap?
Wait, what? Yeah. And I thought if they're going to make it this cheesy, I don't think I can watch this much cheese. Like, I'm too old for this much cheese. I was just like, I cackled when, the twist is that it was a dream. Right. But I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so smart. You like gave that to people like Emille who wanted it, who needed to see the Peach Pit back in its
glory. It was like a shout out. It was like, do you remember this? Do you remember this? I'm like, yes, I'm here for it. Keep going.
Oh my gosh. When he puts the money in the jukebox and he starts the song and he starts kind of dancing. I'm like, that's it. That's my David Silver.
No, dude, that was the episode where, what was their name? That they guest starred.
Color Me Bad. Color Me Bad.
I'm telling you, I was just grinning. It was too much. Yeah. It was too much. It was great.
It was awesome. So we are so excited about this show, guys. And if you are not watching it, I really want you to give it a chance. I actually have a blog post that kind of explains, and Emille has one too. I'm going to link both of those in the show notes here. If you want to hear about why we love 90210, if we haven't expressed ourselves enough. But if you want to read a little bit about the reboot, if you want to read about, our history with it and why we love it, you can go check out both of those blog posts, and I will make sure to add them in here. But I think for now, we're going to go ahead and just wrap this up. I don't know, throw a scrunchie in my hair and do some color me bad moves, right?
Yes.
But we are going to be glued to the next episode. And I know me, I will probably also be live tweeting it on Twitter with my commentary. So if you're interested in that, I'm at No Guilt Life. Emille, do you tweet and watch, or do you just watch?
Oh, I suck at Twitter, but you know what? You're going to make me jump in and do it with you, because I'm here for this. I keep saying it, but I just am. I'm so excited. It's so silly, but I love it.
Well, it was fun. And it was also fun because a couple of the stars were also on Twitter with us as well. So they were watching it with us. And I think that was, I don't know. I like it when they do that.
Oh, I can't miss out on that. Yes, I have to do it.
All right,
I will be there.
What's your Twitter handle?
Girl, I think it's just my name. I think it's Emille Crawford. Because, okay, Salty 2.0, like some chick has Emille Enchanted, and I can put money on the fact that her name is probably freaking Emily, and she's not even active. So, honey, if you're listening, how about you give me a little Twitter name so I can have some brand consistency, honey? Girl, don't you hate that? It's like I bet your name ain't even Emille. Come on.
When I
get so mad.
When I first got on Twitter, I wanted just at Patty, right? I just wanted to be at Patty because I was boring, and I just want to be at Patty. Well, at Patty is I think she's a former Twitter employee. I don't even think she's current anymore. Anyway, she hasn't tweeted in for forever. And so, yes, I've had that same moment of, hey, girl, let that go.
Can you just close the account so we can have it?
Well, even if she would just change it, then I could swoop in and snag it. But yeah. So
all that to say, it's just my name. It's because I tried other things and it didn't fit. So I think it's just Emille Crawford. That's how much I use it. It's embarrassing. I do use it sometimes. I know. Hold on, I'm checking. I don't want to say y'all wrong.
I looked. It's Emille. It's Emille_Crawford. So you're good.
Okay. Nice and easy. Not really, but there you go. My name is weird.
All right, guys. Well, we do appreciate you fangirling 90210 with us today. And I have a feeling we might have to come back once this whole series has dropped, because they are making us, go back to the 90s or some crazy and watch it all one week at a time. But once it's all dropped, maybe Emille and I will come back and we'll talk about how we felt about it. And we'll do a recap show, because all right, done. Because the show is going to be great. And I'm so looking forward to what's coming next. All right, guys, you know what to do. If you love the fangirl, if you are a fangirl, if you're a fanboy, if you just like to talk about the movies and TV shows and anything fun and exciting in pop culture, then this is the show for you. And it's the show for other fangirls. So go ahead and give those 5-star reviews, hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. And we will be back next week. And thanks for fangirling with us today.
Bye, y'all.